What's happening? Benton here. Tuesday morning, Monday night for many folks. Saw Chalk Body Outline was live. Oh, I realized I just forgot the lavalier microphone. It's funny how we can know that we're forgetting things. I knew I was forgetting something. What's up, man? I guess I'm close enough. I'm gonna head back. So it's funny because now, as I'm winding into my talkative mode, trying to keep my voice down, going back into the hovel here. One moment. Apologies. What's up, Rachel? All right. Thanks for your patience. I saw Get Chalked Up was live. I think they might still be live. I have no idea if we should expect any crossover from that show. Perhaps not. Where is this thing? Hmm. Ah, thanks, Rachel. Me too. I also enjoy the walk and talks. I pop in over at Get Chalked Up from time to time. I'm not really able to watch much of it anymore. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean that as it seems like the content has changed direction, or maybe it's just me. I don't know. I can't really make heads or tails out of much of anything they're saying over there. And again, I'm not saying this by way of insult or to demean or put them down. It's me. I just don't know what the hell they're talking about uh, much of the time. And then it is fascinating to see JG up there and on the panel and all the multiple hours, maybe double-digit hours I spent um, primarily on my live stream, although probably other live streams, listening to JG and Chalk Body Outline go back and forth about. JG used to like to give very graphic descriptions of specifically how he was going to physically maim Drew. And now, not that they're best buds necessarily, but it's an interesting dynamic. I don't know if any of you fine folks are keeping up with the goings on or not. But, man, it's like, am I going to just start out whining about my health? But man, this fatigue is something else. I had the dead legs going back up the stairs. Generally, got a little pep in my step. Yeah, but thanks, Rachel. Me as well. Look forward to it for the most part. And I do it helps me to have things to do when I wake up, especially in my procrastinations from matters that will become pressing matters, even if not yet. Yeah, man. What is that? Music called The Secret. I'm pretty sure you remember most of that, and just bizarre. And sometimes I get sideways with folks when I first meet them, and then we end up being friendly or friends. That happens. So I get that dynamic. Oh man. And then Flow State, uh, Pizer popped on there at the end apparently. Wow, this is bad, man. Dude, I'm fucking wore out. I feel good. I woke up. I felt alert. 11:30 once again. I guess that's my new time to arise. Yeah, man. And then I get this. People love to direct this stuff at me as if I'm, somehow obligated to be consistent over time. But then these same people who seem to try to, and we know they're just going to ridicule. It's mockery and ridicule literally no matter what I do. I mean, I could win the fucking Powerball and they would be mocking and riddle. It just literally doesn't matter. Make literal again, by the way. But and I don't know if I'm just one of the few people who can see that. It's like, oh well, clearly, no matter what I do or say, these people are going to mock and ridicule me. So, a bit of freedom in that, right? I think a lot of folks internalize and just want to blame their own behavior. What's up, Mr. Pye? I can see you're wanting to connect and share, which I understand, but I'm not the one for you today, unfortunately, for the bonding and the what do they call that? We're dealing with our social isolation. There certainly seems to be, although Bex is live over there, she's got a panel, but I don't know that I've seen Mr. Pye fit himself into that scenario yet. But good to see you, Mr. Pye, and I'm not trying to be a rude dick. I just know sometimes you seem to enjoy, as many of us do, but just having a chit chat, right? Okay, good. He doesn't want to do it. Fantastic. And realistically, and I know people are probably getting tired of hearing me even bring it up, but with this debilitation, man, I'm wondering what I'm even going to really realistically be able to do going forward. This is not looking good, folks. And yeah, I might put a smile on my face and have a certain type of attitude, but, and I'm not really scared. I'm pretty, I'm generally courageous, but man, I just don't know. What am I actually going to be able to do? I guess be on a computer. Not too much else. Yeah, 1 a.m. There you go. So yeah, 2 a.m. my time, I guess. Or no, midnight my time. There we go. Midnight. Well, I guess it's THCO time. So it's been a good show. It's a wrap. Although this one's not out. It's almost out. So don't get too baked. Uh-oh, 11:11. That's right. It's 1:11 here. Damn. I do forget that time change. So sometimes I think Mr. Pye's up at absurdly, crazy hours, but that's not necessarily true with that 2 hour difference. I'm wondering if I should just wait to go live till I get over to this table, and now I'm looking at the walk and talks downtown, and I'm like, damn, how did I even walk around that long? I must have stopped a lot. Talking about the fatigue. 2:11 says Rachel. Yeah, the time zones are a funny phenomenon, certainly. And bear with me. I don't know. I have no topics today. I didn't absolutely no show prep for this one. So I guess that's what I'm doing now. Trying to organize some of the thoughts. Oh, there you go. You haven't seen my feet, Yellow Cake Maker. Although I will say this, that's true. Actually, I probably could, because I'm sure there's some sicko that's into that. I'm sure there's some sicko that would be into that, but my toenails need some rehabilitation. If you're picking up my meaning there, I've had people not believe that I was homeless. I said, well, I can show you my feet if you want. I think that'll if that doesn't convince a person, nothing will. So, I got homeless looking feet, I can tell you that. Wow, there you go. I like that, Mr. Pie. And this did look like a less loving Mr. Pie. Maybe I should have this Mr. Pie on, actually. I might be missing a golden opportunity. Been listening to a bunch of garbage most of this evening, has my mind twerking. Exactly. It's a bunch of garbage. Now and a lot of my goal in doing these broadcasts is, can I do a broadcast that's, well, some of it will certainly be garbage. Can I do a broadcast that's not mostly garbage? And that's what I see, on a lot of these broadcasts too, Mr. Pine. And again, we're not above that over here at the Benton channel. We know that happens to us also, or me rather. Some folks seem to just get down into those areas and just want to like waller around in it, right? And has Cage stepped his game up lately? That's what I've been thinking about. Because I've been very critical of Cage, and then he hasn't been around. And I don't know. I'm wondering. As the wind kicks up. Hang on, let me. I heard some wind noise the other day, and I just assumed it was I forgot I have two microphones. I unplugged one of them. Maybe that'll help. The lavalier, because I can hear the wind, and I'm not even wearing headphones. Oh, what's up, Carl? Yeah, I'm still not even sure what Hoax Wars is. I guess that's a channel. I think I've heard of that channel. Actually, if that's a channel, I think it is. That's a good channel. Does he do like prepared videos? If that's who I think it is, he does like really good prepared videos. Yeah, it just struck me. I do think I know it. I might be wrong though. Not exactly. I might be thinking of something. Oh, I am. Never mind. That's something else. Wars. Yep. Never mind. What were they losing their shit about, Carl? Did you get them? Carl must have got them. That's true. I know. That's right. I'm aware, Mr. Pott. I think sometimes it's easy for us to sort of just assume it's going to go a certain direction just based on recent events. But yeah, that's prejudice, right? That's me being prejudiced. What's up, Snowfire? Good to see you. See how many folks are desperate for the content to continue. It sounded like they were trying to wrap up over at Chalk Body Outline, but I couldn't. You just never know about these things, right? Yep, Tommy generally does. It's true. Very true. What's up, El Perro in the house? Mr. Word Wizard, Keith. Better hit that damn like button, you bitch ass lady. Oh, man. Well, you heard the man. He said it, not me. Well, that roast seemed to treat me right yesterday, the beef. I slept really good. So, having another one of them today. The thing about that, seems like the meat cooks way faster than the sweet potato, right, in the slow cooker. And I understand, we'll put the meat in later or whatever, but I ain't trying to do all that. I ain't trying to hear all that. Not that I want my damn roast slow cooked for 12 hours either, though. We'll see. Oh, you defended his honor. Interesting. Well, good. Oh, they were going in on Wizard. Yeah. Tommy particularly dislikes Wizard. I've noticed. And Tommy plays these games where he'll, not with Wizard quite as much, but to some extent. And I probably have my own versions of this also. He'll sort of maintain a certain type of, if not cordial, you know, he seems to see the value in trying to stay somewhat on halfway decent terms with folks. I guess maybe that's the way to put it, Tom. Although we know he'll spurg out and go off on folks, much like myself, although not so much lately, if y'all have noticed. Oh, highly suspect. I guess that's my whipping boy now, right? I've been going off on highly suspect. Oh, man. Still not quite sure how to approach all of that, Mr. Suspect. You know, I can tell he's going through something. I'd like to be of assistance if possible, but then I'm going through some shit myself, right? And of all the boomers on all the panels, you know, how can he be the one who can't fucking get online? Now, like we see with, and on the StreamYard, I mean, but as we see with like Kim Before the Storm, some folks just choose to live in areas for whatever reason where it's much of the time there's just no, maybe they can download, and that's fuck off. Look at this. How is that legal? I'm not on the premises, moron. Fuck, man, I hate that shit. Forgot what I was talking about. Disembodied voices yelling at me. 1:20 a.m. That's a great idea, Snowfire. The best part is, like, what if I just ate a whole bunch of watermelon? Like, what if I more or less like ate all the watermelon my body could take in like one day, and then I come on my live stream and Snowfire says you need to eat watermelon. But what if I literally ate as much watermelon as a human being could possibly ingest and make use of yesterday? See, I may not, in fact, under those circumstances, that may be not correct at all. So I'm trying to get out of the you need to do this and you need to do that. And I understand folks are kind-hearted and all of this, but you know, I am a critic by nature. I am set up for correction in many ways, whether I like that or not. But the reality is, I could eat some watermelon perhaps. Although I'm finding that watermelon in certain areas can be difficult to acquire, especially when one is a, you know, I'm a single person, meaning I'm by myself, meaning I can't necessarily just purchase a gigantic watermelon without knowing that much of it will go to waste. And I know people's minds are problem solving ways to extend the life of the watermelon. That's not what I mean. I mean that it's ultimately, yeah, things can be done, but ultimately it's good for a particular portion of time after it's put into, as far as I can tell. Yeah, I know there's means and methods, but that's not what I'm talking about. And I do find it interesting, the just the problem solving in general. And then, and again, not trying to pick on you, Snowfire. This is, I do this, I pick on the comments, but then people, I guess it feels like, which makes sense. It feels like now they've done something wrong and like they're being admonished. But that's really not the point. It's more of that I do these things also. Like I run around and sometimes I don't have control of myself and I start telling people what they need to do. But the reality is, how could I possibly know what another person needs to do? You know, outside of extremely basic things, right? Ultimately, it's not something I can really know, or to know it as well as they can know it would be effectively impossible. watermelons, they always have the advantage because they're in their body and they're the ones having their experiences. I'm having my experiences. I'm in my body. So realistically, it's not that logical for me to, in most cases, how could I know what someone needs to do or even should do? But perhaps they could. See? So perhaps I could eat some watermelon. And then we get just into just authoritarianism and tyranny in general, and the fact that a lot of people just like to tell people what to do. But then those are the people, and I don't mean Snowfire, I mean generally. A lot of times, those are the most ineffectual people when we look at their lives, because they are unable to really take a hold of their own sphere and their own space a lot of times, but they do still want to contribute and be helpful. So that's the folks who usually have a lot of suggestions for other people. And here's what I found, Snowfire. And again, I'm not, and I am cranky old man to some extent as well. But again, trying not to run you off or offend you, but that may very well happen anyway. Because again, I'm not picking on you, the person who you're just using a common figure of speech that happens to annoy me. So I don't see how that's your fault, right? And we saw this in the fake pandemic. Just I realized almost immediately that, well, I have the discipline and the hypervigilance. Like if all of these measures would actually keep me alive, I can adhere to it 100% of the day, just like I can and have ran a cash register for 6 months, and it came out to the penny every single shift. It's not an exaggeration. That's autism, or what we may refer to as autism in part. So I can do all of the measures perfectly. I realize that the vast majority of folks can't, but they can watch the people, so they can't observe and discipline and keep themselves in line. But what they can do is watch everybody else. Oh, your nose isn't covered, or see what I'm saying? And it seems like this was already bad as far as I'm concerned, just the dispensing of advice and suggestions. And I used to be the worst offender. So that's probably why this annoys me. Because left to my own devices in an undeveloped, unevolved state, I tend to mob around with all these great ideas that nobody asked for. And again, I know you're trying to help, and it's part of my progress and whatever I'm doing is teaching myself how to be triggered by a certain thought or a certain notion, but then keep that separated from what the person is actually trying to convey. And then I don't know if you've been around Snowfire, but I've covered as much as my internet has allowed me, which is to say not much at all. I've been covering some of the Cali Muscle stuff. He's a content creator, used to be a bodybuilder, and he's been pushing a lot of the watermelon stuff. So I actually have been eating a lot of watermelon, but I'm finding many problems around purchasing watermelon. A lot of the ones are no good. And again, I know we're already going into problem solving, but whatever the person may be suggesting, because I'm in my sphere and in my life and in my experiences, much of what's about to be suggested may be off the table, meaning I don't have a kitchen. I don't live a conventional lifestyle, like all of these things. Not all of the time anyway. Some of the time I guess I do. So it's the common sense thing where I say something why I can't just necessarily have unlimited watermelon on tap all the time. Can be fairly expensive, lest we forget. Especially if one's trying to eat high amounts of it. It has helped my kidneys a lot, certainly. That and other things. It's been beneficial, but even the things that are beneficial can become not beneficial, in the wrong circumstance. Like what if I just eaten a certain type of meal, and to eat watermelon with those foods, that might make me sick. But you need to do this. It's like, well, wait a minute. But what if I just did this other thing? Oh, well, you didn't tell me you did that. Well, you spoke as if you knew something. So how did I know that? See where we get into the confusion? But I agree, watermelon's wonderful. I've just unfortunately part of my problem is sometimes I spend my money and the watermelon goes straight into the trash, like happened yesterday. Of course, again, probably not a full size gigantic watermelon because of what I said earlier. I'm on my own, and I know I can go find people to give it to. That's not what I'm talking about. The excess watermelon that is. That's not that much different than just cutting the thing in half and saying, well, I'm not gonna. That half is not for me because it's not gonna be good by the time I get around. Oh man, getting high. And then also another problem, Snow Fire, is that I immediately begin to picture when somebody starts telling me what I need to do. I immediately start picturing what their habits are probably like. And much of the people who go into live chat and much of the people in these truth communities, they LARP as if they don't go to fast food on a regular basis. They LARP as if they don't have, whatever their junk food of choice is that they consume, right? And there's some exceptions. Some people never put processed food in the body ever. Some people. That's the minority, as we know. Most people are eating processed foods, if not highly processed foods, on a regular basis. And, well, of course, which makes sense, because why clean up one's own house when they can tell me to eat some watermelon? And I'm dying of very serious chronic, like literally, I'm got very serious chronic illness that's actively killing me. And so much so that I'm not even able to maintain my own body weight. But here comes the panacea of watermelon. See, and I'm not mad at watermelon. I love watermelon. I've been eating a lot of it. What I'm annoyed with is this idea, and it is binary thinking, and which I get accused of in some ways, black and white thinking, so called. But it's like, uh, the person's been on YouTube like I've been, and so much watermelon stuff's been promoted. That's the new hot craze is these watermelon fasts. But as a panacea, see, these things are promoted as snake oil or a panacea. So now it's literally mind control is what it is, because now the person sees that I'm talking about my issues around fatigue and this and that. No, I'm extremely seriously ill in a way that other than the divine or the most high or God or whatever we're calling it, short of that intervening, this thing the course is set. And I don't want to, and then it would get into, he's manifesting now. No, I'm not. I've worked very effectively with the law of attraction. Anybody who hears me say that and immediately starts to freak out as if I'm bringing this on myself. Like, that's insane, but that happens. And I've noticed this as I've talked about my own issues. It's like I've detected all these various pitfalls, and people's reactions, which has nothing to do with me ultimately. Like, we really don't. I mean, we care, but we don't care. I mean, and I don't want to speak for everybody. It's like, do you care? And somebody asked me recently if I had ever listened to Tom Likas. They said I guess my radio presentment reminds them of Tom Likas. But yeah, I've listened to Tom Likas. I'm a fan of talk radio in general, or especially back then, but never was a huge Likas guy specifically, but he was good at what he did. And people would call in and say, "How are you?" And he'd say, "Do you care?" Which is true, man. Like, on some level, yeah, on some level, no. But and I interpret it as, "Hey, shut the fuck up and eat some watermelon, so we don't have to listen to you whine and cry about your fucking plight here." Which may also not be true. That's in part how I interpret it. It's like, hey, dummy, everybody knows just eat the watermelon and now you're going to be restored to health. Hey, dummy, hey, stupid. Don't you know that watermelon cures literally everything to do with your health? I mean, that's sort of how I perceive it. And then, I don't expect everybody that pops into these live chats or live streams to know that I do regularly cover Callie Muscle, who's been on a 32-day watermelon fast. Yeah. What's up, Goblin? Well, and that was, saying you should or you need. It's a particular way of speaking that is built into my culture where when and where I was socialized, right? So I ran around talking that way for years, and it was the hippies out on the. I'm telling you, man, it was the hippies out on the left coast, which is not real hippies, pseudo neo hippies, I guess. Whatever the current breed is. They were, and shout out to them because they didn't get angry and like forceful with me. Over time, people gently conveying those messages. Well, even just correcting me if I said you should, they might, in a polite way, just sort of show that they're correcting the speech form to they could, right? Which means it's an option, which means ultimately they will be deciding, right? Not I. I'm not the, but it's still if you examine the form, it's an attempt to dictate. See, it's a dictation in a way. Now the people immediately go, like highly suspect, go no, 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 no. That's his. And have you noticed that reaction? See, to me, that's a bad sign that someone's gotten into the pattern of no, a lot of that sort of thing. No, right? Like, where does that come from? It's a bizarre phenomenon. But where I'm operating from is, certain individuals, some of which who may be in these particular internet ghettos, do a really good job with their health as far as what they eat, their exercise level, all of it. Most people are typical Americans. So I'm not willing to be in the metaverse and to mostly, with some exceptions, but mostly be interacting with typical Americans. But then now I'm going to let them behave like they're 100% above reproach, but then also dictate to me based on me just authentically and as directly and honestly as possible, just saying stuff about me and my life, right? And a vlog, by the way. This is the level of my content much of the time is I'm a vlogger, right? I mean, think about that. Or I need to think about that. I'm beginning to think about that. It's like, man, it's hilarious that I talk about life as art and all this, which, of course, there's some validity to that. It's like, you're a vlogger. So, interesting arrogance versus humility there. So when I resist those forms of speech, it's because I've chosen to install code in my mind that's utilizing my own hypervigilance to every time that form appears to strike it down. And that's the golden rule, because I don't like when people give me unsolicited advice and suggestions. In some way, perhaps the only way for me to prove that is to not do that, right? Not do that to other people. And again, not trying to correct Snowfire. I just find it fascinating. And I find it more helpful, just more helpful in general than saying what I could or need or should or would do. Just more of a generalized, because I've said before, I love the generalized health talk on here. It drives me nuts that almost every single time I mention my health, people immediately try to problem solve and make suggestions. Like, just imagine on some level believing that they can heal another person by typing words at the person through the metaverse or into the metaverse. That's insane. I mean, that is insane. To think that way that is insanity. Period. I'm not calling the person insane. That's insane. And have I done my own versions of that? Yeah, of course I have. And it's just like an assumed authority in a way. The person is sort of just, probably because of the, way the media operates. And I have said before, all media is trauma. Now I am being hyperbolic, certainly, but I've said all media is trauma, and especially in the ways that I mean that with the mass media, so-called. But it's pretty much all mass media in the corporate age, is it not? I'm speaking with you folks, at you folks, whatever this is we're doing. This is happening via Alphabet, Google, YouTube's help hit, lest we forget. And here come the wind again. Hold on. And I just want to know, can you hear the wind? I had a little bit of a misunderstanding with RT, or not RT, with Gary Baxter, who was not aware that certain autistic folks like myself, I just won't listen to a video if the high wind noise comes in. If it goes away right away, I'll persist, but as soon as it comes back, I'll just go to another video. I can't listen to wind. So I just want to know, is there wind noise? But not in a we're paranoid, we think we hear it, we're not sure. I just mean yes or no, can you hear the wind? If one cannot, then that answers my question. Because I have no way of knowing what y'all are hearing. Actually, I do, since I brought my headphones. That's a whole other story. What's up? 99.99% of everything is objectively false. There you go. Nice. I like it. Yeah, see, now we're green juice. Yeah, exactly. Just generalize. Because see, the reality is, Snow Pie, that I have some specific issues, numerous specific issues that I'm balancing out, because some of them, many of them are in conflict with each other. Some of my various organs and what they would like to have at the level of diet and nutrition. Some of that is at cross purposes, seemingly. So the reality is, there's been times in my illnesses where I could have watermelon, but only small amounts. Anything over a small amount messed me up pretty fucking royally, because there's a thing called like your potassium balance and all of this, and people talk about kidney problems. Well, one of the main things that comes along with kidney problems is a hampered ability. The body's not able to get the potassium out of the body sometimes when it needs to, necessarily, the kidneys. And I'm not a doctor. This is not medical advice. I certainly have no high level understanding of medicine, but this is the way I seem to understand it. So then there can be too much potassium, but then which I do at times experience, but then I also have it where sometimes I don't have enough. So it hits me both ways. Same thing with the vitamin A. Not enough vitamin A, and it's hard to see. But guess what? Too much vitamin A, blurry vision. Amazing. But at a certain point, I was way under what I needed for vitamin A, so I overcompensated, and then all was well. But then eventually, I was taking in so much vitamin A, it was like, wait a minute. It's blurry vision from too much vitamin A. So then I had to back off. So a lot of this is like a balancing act. So that's kind of where I started with was, yeah, you might be right but only if somebody suggests something to me and they're correct, it may just be out of luck, because if they made the same suggestion in another time, it would be bad and actually probably make me ill, right? Cause me to experience illness, potentially. Well, and I don't go to doctors, and I think you know that, Mr. Pie. And that's another thing that's tripped me out, is just how many folks want me to go to doctors. And I've said I'm not going to doctors. Even my dad was freaking out when I was talking to him, and he was like something about, well, go to DHS or this. And I said, so what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Like, how can I talk? And I've talked to my dad for hours about how fucked up and horrible the system is, right? And he's more or less agrees about the hell and all this in his own way, maybe not in those terms. And where's my log? Hold on. Plug in the log. Plug in the live, love. People, man, hilarious, just fucking hilarious. So what I do is I observe all the things that people direct at me, but then I take it further and I watch their disastrous lives, right? Both before and after. And I don't comment that much necessarily, but I observe and I pay attention. So then I juxtapose the hilarity of those same people somehow believing it appropriate for them to advise me. Meanwhile, I will ask for help if I need it, certainly. No problem asking for help or assistance, or especially specific questions. You know, and in some ways, this is like the training of oneself, overcoming my own bullshit fucking tendencies. Because ultimately, people just want me to shut the fuck up about my health because it can make us uncomfortable because a lot of folks are not comfortable with their own mortality, and then maybe even if they believe that they eat healthy, maybe they're not as healthy as they could be. I don't know anything about that, Mr. Pie. I don't know. The word didn't make it over this way. Well, I think doesn't that apply to just about everything? Mr. Pie says, I think it's all about vibration frequency. What do I know? Yes. Doesn't that apply to just about everything? It's friggin' wind, man. I gotta have to go back to the. I kind of want to move around, but I think I'm gonna need to go back to the bench over there. The wind stopped as soon as I started walking. I'm gonna find something to sit on. I could have brought my blanket. Feeling a little too much like I'm on stage over at the picnic table. I don't think there's anything to sit on back here, though. Maybe. Not really. No. Shucks. So what I was saying about the potassium and all of that. Oh. Keep your head on a swivel. That's right. Always. Always. There's a little bit of traffic, like during the, maybe on the weekend or whatever. But of course, before I was starting these a little later and going much earlier lately. I'm just off today, though. I can tell you that. Right up that light. right over there. Yeah, exactly. There you go. Potassium and sodium balance. Yeah. I've had so much struggle with my kidneys over the last year. And that's been as far as just managing all of what I've been managing. A lot of that's kidneys. And I know most folks have no fucking idea what I've been through, man. I don't think that way really. So it's like, it's survival, you know. I got a strong will to live, as I guess pretty much everybody does, right? The human survival instinct, as it were. Yeah, there you go. I just, my opinion is that you place a little more too much importance on pH. That's just my opinion with it, but I'm just a guy who likes to learn stuff and likes ideas. So I'm sure you've studied that. I'm sure you know more about that than I do. Actually, certain that. I know a thing or two. I've read a thing or two, I should say. What I know, I guess, will be demonstrated or not. Those who are paying attention, right, will be able to make those calls for themselves. Yeah. But pretty much all of my organs took direct hits, you know, from the alcohol, although that does affect like the pancreas more arguably, but it certainly affected my kidneys as well. But then again, these issues were not caused by alcohol. So when I'm trying to talk to people, it's very difficult for people to organize their thinking. So this is where I got to with at the Robert Escobar show. Like, he doesn't see his thinking as disordered, but that doesn't mean that his thinking is in fact ordered. Uh, a lot of folks just they don't have experience. They're not set up to put their own thoughts in a particular order for a particular reason, right? And some of us have more or less trained ourselves to do these things and or do some of it naturally, right? But it's like when we get into my health and alcohol and the fact that I had the issues for years, and there's several factors, right, that played a part. Genetics would be one, but if I'm having a conversation with somebody, well, we've got organs have been organ damage, and we've got alcohol, so that has now it's a closed system as far as they're concerned. That's how the mind works. That's disordered thinking. That's thinking that hasn't been put in its proper order. If the person is using their mind to critique and interrogate and you know, attempt to affirm various ideas, and they can see, oh, okay, this thing's not quite in the right position. You can kind of rotate the Tetris piece, put it in place. It's not rocket surgery, people. And I know rocket science. There was a football coach one time said rocket surgery, somewhat humorously. Yeah, it's disorderly conduct. That's right. Yeah, I see a lot of folks. I mean, the fact that Robert Escobar's thinking is disordered, that's normal, man. I mean, or it's status quo. But the thing is, if he's now talking to me and my thinking in these areas is ordered, well, now there could be an issue because he's going to want to put everything onto me, right? Like, he's using certain appeals to, he doesn't know the tactics, but it's, you know, it's emotional appeals. You know, when I like to talk about the peanut gallery, where's my water? When I like to talk about the peanut gallery. I'll leave my water. The person. It's not in this backpack, to be sure. Well, now we get to go on a fun mission called Find the Water Bottle. Interesting. Must have left it up here by the Walgreens. And the friggin' Enterprise. I can hear it from over here. The Enterprise thing telling people to leave the property. What in the hell, dude? Heavy wind once again. Heavy wind. I'll trust that the boom is doing its job, especially with the fuzzy dead cat filter, or whatever they call that. Yeah, dead cat filter. Rocket surgery sounds better. Hey, what's up, Roy? Good to see you, man. Dude. Yeah, I seem to be entering the lots of rest phase of whatever's going on, which I think probably goes along with the debilitation, perhaps. This thing might get ugly. I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it will no matter what, right? Is that my water bottle? Kind of looks like. I believe it is. How silly of me. This is what I mean about I've trained myself to look back when I've been posted up somewhere. This was me being distracted and a breakdown in my systems or whatever. Interesting. And I can't blame the cannabis, or I could, but I shan't. I shan't blame the cannabis. Apologies for the shakiness. Becoming a little more aware of maybe. I think this phone actually does pretty good. The selfie cam seems halfway decent. Been looking at upgrades if I'm going to actually keep doing these things. I don't know. I'm wondering what the interest is going to be going forward for what's more or less vlogs, right? If I ever manage to get off the cannabis, then certainly the strong synthetic cannabis, then probably more ideas and presentations and such will come in. I think y'all know what I mean, generally. Down to 4 9-volt batteries, by the way. Shout out to the generous donations paid for the last 12 pack. So it's like 15 bucks on Amazon for 12 AC Delco 9-volt batteries for my portable mixer. They last a while, but these longer live streams knock them out pretty quick. So that'll be interesting. 16 in the house at 2 a.m. I know some of that is ratings are down to some extent. It's there's a time when I was the channel was enjoying quite a bit of publicity. Chalk body outline. There was a lot of stuff, a lot of videos being made over there. A lot of coverage of yours truly. And I still am, a regular. I've noticed I'm still a topic at times. More so in the live chat, though. I haven't heard much of anything about me on panel, but I'm sure I come up time to time. Just guessing, right? Yeah. Especially as these have all, but I've noticed they've become. I don't watch them anymore. That's another thing. I used to always, when I was doing my podcast, I listened to every one of those episodes at least like 5 times. I was doing a lot of critiquing of my own delivery, and that's all out the window. None of that's happening. I don't even go back and play them back hardly to even check on how it sounds. So when that girl at the motel said, "Oh, vlogging," yeah, exactly, vlogging. Try to dress it up, make it highfalutin, but vlog, the vlogger. Now, no, I can't even get anybody to come up on the panel with me, but I don't really want anybody to, honestly. I just feel like most people just ain't got their shit together, man. I mean, to a basic level, it just feels that way. I know that's not the reality. Sometimes I'm just like, really? This is what we're talking about here? And some of that I think is people don't always have it. And again, maybe maybe the community is way more autistic than I realized. Right? Maybe I've heard some rumblings that some different folks have more or less suggested a high percentage of autistic people, right? Which I guess would kind of make some sense based on some of these social dynamics. Because when I'm held hostage in a conversation, I can deal with the part where I'm held hostage because sometimes I need the other person to shut the fuck up while I plow through some material. Like that does happen, right? I get it. But my thing is, why don't they seem to be tapped into me enough to understand that I'm having the experience of someone who's being held hostage while they just go on and on and on and on about whatever, but in a way where you can tell it's constructed to where nobody's going to be able to jump in and halt their progress or whatever. They're just going to get it out, almost like a catharsis, right? And I'm fine with most of that, but it's like I'm confused. Like, why do they just not know, or their patterns are set up in such a way that's not just they're not concerned with. But then it's like, are we really trying to meet on a human level and have an interaction? Because when I've said that those interactions are healing to both parties, I stand by that, but not if both parties aren't actually meeting, right? And you know what this is, by the way, especially as Highly Suspect talks about his shadow work. It's person A using person B for person A's own gratification, but I'm person B in that scenario. But I don't consent to that pretty much ever. So the solution is probably that just doesn't happen again, meaning I just won't be in that scenario again. And then people wonder why they're having trouble contacting me. And it's not that, but it's like, I've already said I'm not into the phone, man. Like, everybody else gets on the StreamYard. I understand that internet just doesn't work. So sometimes Kim before the storm, he can listen. And look at what some of these people are doing to themselves, because the download does work just about everywhere. Almost everywhere they can watch YouTube videos, right? But in a lot of areas, as we're discovering, I did the internet speed test at midnight or 12:30 or whatever, I don't know, whatever time it was, I guess 12:30. I barely had an upload, but the download was like 70 fucking megabits. So the network issues, it's specifically upload. And that's where like the Starlink, it's trash because the upload sucks. And Tommy kept going on and on about it, but I'm thinking like, yeah, but it's upload. I don't care what the download is. Everybody's download's halfway decent. I want to know what is the upload. And I went and researched it for myself because nobody knew. I brought it up. Tommy's there. It's like nobody even knows what I'm saying about the upload, or just I get some tacitly brushed off like, oh yeah. The thing that lets me do a live stream, my uplink to my fucking internet, the thing that allows this to happen, and StreamYard does facilitate it. StreamYard's worth the 25, if not just to whatever compression they're doing to fucking get the most out of whatever my bullshit upload might be, which is I'm actually considering just going to some big city or larger that has decent 5G ultra wideband and just getting it. Why I paid as much as I could have gotten a 5G ultra wideband phone. Looking back on it, that was another, but it's again, different decisions for different reasons. But yeah, I want to see the difference. I'll just stream right to I'll still use StreamYard, but for the IRL stuff, there's other software I can use. I might be able to just go right from my phone if I have good enough bandwidth, right? Apparently there's like a person can set up an OBS server and access that over the internet for various purposes. I'm still researching some of this. And again, I have the tendency to learn everything, to exhaustively just sort of take it all in, but I don't have the energy for that anymore. So now I'm sort of just taking in what I can and trying to see what might be worth buying. I've done good, pretty good. I've done pretty good on the electronic stuff, though. Most of what I have is still useful. I use a lot of my things on a regular basis. Yeah. Well, thanks. I don't know. I feel like I haven't been living up to my end of the bargain with compelling content. Some of it has been certainly, to be sure, but just the ramblings, and I know I can't really stay on a topic properly most of the time. Did I write off Snowfire earlier? By the way, yeah, I feel bad. Is that Sherelle Snow? Is that the same person? Autism. Well, again, a collection of behavior, a collection of behaviors all within the normal range for humans, collected together and given a name. I mean, that's what we're talking about. So, yeah, if one is willing to go down and accept a premise that ridiculous, then I don't think it's that ridiculous to talk about autism. And I do think, I've been reviewing my appearance on Provo Kids podcast. I probably did offend him because I am outspoken about certain aspects of autism where maybe he does disagree, and I believe he did on the podcast. Perhaps we could have explored that more in the moment. I was coming off the high of all the attention from my birthday stream, though. I think still when I wandered over there. Oh yeah, we can do a podcast, whatever. I wasn't really in the it was just like, oh well, if nobody else wants to do it, I guess I can and will. Perhaps not my best performance. It's on his Spotify and his iTunes Provo Kid podcast, which I presumably is being retired, and I may have ended up being as the last ever guest, but apparently I went into his live chat and mentioned that he probably remembered. Oh wait a minute, I can't have Benton. Again, this is speculating, but I can't have Benton as the last guest, so he machine lies ended up doing it, which I still haven't listened to yet. I'm looking forward to it. There's still some content that I like to take in, some of which is by Provo Child, so called. Believe it or not, Paul. Paul's hopefully getting some rest. That's plans for him. Right? We're good to see you, MD. Yeah, there you go. True Metal Jake. Yeah, interesting locations, which is not necessarily, like downtown Dallas is not that interesting necessarily. I want to do more hit and run type of stuff, which is kind of limited by my own physical prowess now as I'm, just now moving into some of these areas of physical debilitation because I'd built my body up. I trained very intensely, intense physical training for several straight years. So, some of those effects with strength and muscle mass, it takes a while to wear off. And like, even like 6 months ago, 9 months ago, I would be shirtless on stream sometimes. Like I know that I was at a low body weight. I was probably like 130 pounds at the time, but I still looked like I had some muscles. And then, there's an effect. Well, I did because, I still had pretty good muscle tone and definition. I could flex my muscles or whatever. But most of that's gone. I still got a little bit in the chest, very puny arms, right, at this point. And, I had a decent set of guns on me, nothing crazy. It was real thick from the lats to the chest, was like that. Front to back was deep, man. Deep. Did a good job on that part of it. That's almost all gone. I got a little bit of lat. I bet I could do a pull up. Of course, at my body weight, I should be able to do a pull up. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the content here, especially once I end up leaving this area, which I'm almost certain is going to happen. Although that's not a given, assuming I'm leaving this area. the necessary the upheaval just built into a process like that. It will have to be good for the content and the idea, or at least to move them forward or facilitate them. But it's getting stale for me, right? Creatively, I'm not going to be able to remain stagnant for very long, which is probably one of the reasons why I haven't put out a lot of just, oh, here's a book by Benton, here's a movie by Benton, here's this thing by Benton, and just haven't really ever picked one area and just stayed on it. So maybe this is that. I don't know. I don't know. Man, Wizard writing books down there. Damn, dude. There we go. I mean, I'm glad you are, but I'm not in the frame of mind to take that in. The end is nigh for THC. I don't know, man. I know the audience is ready. I know that. Realistically, I could do something like what Z's doing, but I think, just my opinion, a week ain't nothing, man. It's a month. For me, it'd be a month. So probably I need to take like a whole month off, like no bullshit. 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. Not that I will. I was gone for what? Like a solid 3 weeks, I think. It's only been good for the content for me to disappear. I've said that before that I do. I do. That is a thing that I do. I do disappear here and there for up to a couple of weeks or a couple of months. I don't want to live there. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Could be. Snowfire. Good to see you, by the way. Glad I didn't run off Snowfire. Although that was a while back, that comment. Yeah. Oh, are you copy and pasting into my chat, Wizard? I don't know. You could do a little less of that, Wizard, if you wanted. Like maybe like every other one. Oh, okay. Oh, my water bottle. Thank you, Snowfire. Snowfar. Yeah, Wizard. Copy and pasting it. Come on, man. Come on, buddy. At least distill it. Put your own stink on it. Make love to it yourself, right? Put your own stink on it. Whatever, man. I don't think I'm not sure it even matters. Increasingly, I just don't have the energy to wrangle pretty much any of these folks. Just, I guess, Word Wizard's here and he just does whatever he does, but I don't know. Why do I care ultimately? I guess I don't. As we know, none of this is going to amount to Hill of Beans, Wizard. None of it. Although, that's yet to be written, I suppose. I do like to speak my opinions as if they are indeed facts. We've all noticed that. Oh, thank you. Good. I want your takes. That's right. As long as it's your takes, you can copy and paste whatever you need to. Yeah, if they have questions, and yeah, I know, you know me, man. I want the takes. You kidding me? I copy it, dude. Sometimes I screenshot those, Wizard. I'm not even kidding. It's like I know that there's something in there that I'm gonna want to know about, but like I know right now I'm not in the space to do anything with it. I'll just screenshot it. Yeah, I'll go back, and at some point I will be looking at that screenshot. How soon that is, I don't know, but I kept up with all my old hard drives. I know that. I got all that data copied over from the old ThinkPads. It took a long time. I talked about that forever, if folks remember. I was like, I'm going to go pull those hard drives out of those broken ThinkPads. Turned out of the four, only one of them was actually broken. Because for a while, I was just buying used ThinkPads and slapping Linux on them. Ubuntu. And if y'all know anything about Linux, apparently Ubuntu is considered trash now, and I think that's kind of why EBT was making fun of me. But they make an exception for so-called lightweight distros because, especially since they run on like these old ThinkPads, they run really well. They're stripped down and don't need a lot of resources. So these same people who think Ubuntu's trash, these Linux nerds, they all have a soft spot for these lightweight distributions. So Ubuntu ends up viewed favorably by most of these folks, but they also are like, no, Ubuntu's trash. And that's just one of the many Linux distributions. It's all Linux, right? It's a pain in the ass sometimes. I'm not gonna lie, but overall, it works really well. I can more or less do everything y'all do. People do play games on Linux, but I don't do any gaming, so that's not an issue. But as far as I can tell, I'm not prevented from actually doing anything on my computer by using Linux. There you go. Indeed, sir. Accuracy is very important, as you certainly make sure to stress. And I appreciate that you stress that, because a lot of folks, they, as we know, have some sort of aversion to that. So they, because they are repelled by certain aspects of accuracy, they, which is okay, like that's normal and expected. The, for me, the issue is I see people then assign some sort of meaning to those irrational feelings, and I mean irrational based on their what they're rooted in. And I'm remembering now, this is when the numbers were peaking out the other day, and then I never quite. I started to go into these topics that I'm now brushing up against, and I never quite penetrated directly into them. I could tell it was like, oh, I was supposed to do a thing, and people thought it was coming, and now it's clearly not going to happen. So a bunch of folks left. I think I remember what all that was now, but doesn't mean I'm going to be able to get there and elucidate all of those topics, right? If if any of these vlogs represent the elucidation of topics, be sure. Uh-oh, am I lying? Oh, I cannot lie. There you go. It is, yeah. Ah, 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 ah. Wait a minute. Did we earn our banner here? We might have. Hold on. I was thinking about Tommy, man, Illuma Tommy. Uh, he certainly seems to always be able to find a panel or panels to go to. So I think from his perspective, if he shows up here one day and I'm like, yeah, man, you've annoyed me, go away. Probably not any big deal to him, right? Presumably, he'll just. So now I've seen him up on with Paul. I won't say best buds, but and again, I selfishly want them to get along. It is better content. Although sometimes the battles are, at least a couple of them, two or three of them happened here. One of them was a 2-on-1 to some extent. Hecklebus, Keith stayed out of it. He didn't fully join, but he was. I don't know. Y'all were both going, kind of took turns, I guess. I don't know. I don't want to mischaracterize what happened. Tommy was game, so it certainly wasn't unfair in that regard. It was interesting though, those battles. And Tom might want to whine and cry about Paul having the keys, but there's been enough interactions on equal footing on this channel. I feel like I've and I stood up to Paul in a way. I mean, because I knew he didn't want that environment at the time, presumably, or at least was it applying whatever pressure he could to me. I wasn't even entertaining it at that time. It's like, no, man, mano y mano. But then things changed. Hell, Tommy almost got the keys. I don't know if y'all remember that. I was trying to get Tommy to do his own show. I was like, fuck, I'll start a network over here, man. Next thing you know, Benton might have 24 hours of live stream. Kevin Smith tried that, doing like 24-hour podcast network, and found it to be a fellow Leo, by the way, found it to be a bit off more than he could chew. He was doing like 4 to 6 hours a day, I want to say. 8 hours, 12 hours, probably doable. 24. Yeah. They can't deal with the securities talk. They can't deal with it because it's too much of that, the three-letter agencies or the propaganda or the system. It's so effectively done, like a Gene Hackman from Enemy of the State, just on, you know, these stories of, well, you just, it's a you're purchasing a particular type of security, but you're, putting up the security as collateral, the security itself, and like there's all these things that sound fantastical. And then I've seen cases where people like would go off on these things of manifesting, and oh, you can use your, since your corporate info or whatever, and I'm not using the right terminology, but from their perspective, they thought they had found a way to work like spiritually within the system, and then they did end up, some of these folks were able to get their hands on some fiat apparently through the various means that are real, right? As far as, yeah, the system is, this is the design of the system. And I think that's a lot of what freaks people out is with Wizard is a lot of the time he's speaking not system speak even, although to some extent it ends up being system speak at a certain point, or it can, but it's like, no, that is the system itself. Like this is the description of the nature of the system. It does work and it operates on those levels in some way. And I think that freaks people out, Wizard. It's not Wizard, but then we necessarily get into some version to kill the messenger. Like that, of course, that's human nature. I even do that to some extent. Yeah, process speak. So I think people get freaked out because it is real. And then even to learn enough, like Mitchell talks in certain ways about the beneficiary and this and that, just that freaks people out. Even me, I'm a little freaked out by it, but I know enough to know, I've done enough study of my own to know that what he's talking about, it is rooted in something real, or something that at least people have all just agreed to more or less behave as if it's real, right? I'm no expert in those matters. I find it difficult to be in a so-called truth community of like question everything, but then I see very few folks, some certainly, more of the fallen slave types, but less so on the CBO side, to actually just question everything, look into it, ask questions, but then they want to mock and ridicule, and then I catch Kim making a blunder out of the gate trying to talk about the financial system, and I know more about it than him because I've studied it more than he has. Yeah, he's interfaced with various aspects of it to a greater and arguably more successful, less unsuccessful, extent than I have, right? Good for you. He wants, oh, fractional reserve banking, as if my understanding and ability to demonstrate an understanding of the topic can somehow be dismissed because of fractional reserve banking. I'm like, well, that's some part of it, but no, I'm not speaking now of fractional reserve banking. It's not what I'm now speaking. But yeah, my understanding of a lot of these people who have actually, and this is where Wizard, you notice how they attack him. They immediately start saying, okay, put up or shut up. Why haven't you monetized these abilities if you can? And I think Wizard, my perception is that Wizard's making the point that no, this is the system, how the system's set up. He never said, I'm going to say these things and utilize these means in order to have fiat transferred into accounts under my control, even if that's via some sort of trust or whatever, right? Some sort of shell game. At a certain point, it becomes their fraud, or it can, getting in there and analyzing and well, where can I hold their feet to the fire, on spiritual law that they have to uphold because, as far as I can tell, evil doesn't have free will. I mean, I don't know if I'm right on that. I have to do some thinking. Don't page Jim Bob, right? Not paging Jim Bob, but certainly that's not my field of study, theology. Uh, so the very, all of these, very uncomfortable truths, man, inconvenient truths. It's easier to kill the messenger and mock and ridicule and dismiss out of hand than to actually question things enough to realize that it's ridiculous. The financial system is ridiculous, and I can just say things that I've verified with my own research, my own reading of many hundreds, if not thousands, of news articles, and certainly between 10 and probably 15 books. How many of y'all read Ron Paul's In the Fed? I read it. It's a very easy to read book, by the way. It's written for people who don't read a lot of books to be able to read. I read it very quickly. I read that. I read, God, I'd have to just look it up. There was something about Bernanke. There was a book about Bernanke and the Fed. I have no idea what the title was. There's a bunch of them. I read an entire book about mortgage-backed securities called $1 Trillion Meltdown by Charles Morris. I think that ended up getting renamed to $3 Trillion Meltdown. It came out fairly early in the global financial crisis. So that was an entire book about mortgage-backed securities, like the securities themselves. I can more or less explain what a CDO was or is. Derivatives that's a little more ethereal, but at one time I had a fairly good grasp of it. I probably need to go brush up. So I understand people necessarily existing within these systems and interacting with them and being used by them and using them and being used by them simultaneously. See it freaking people out. So yeah, I get the mockery of, but fractional reserve banking is a mockery. I'm not a mockery for bringing up fractional reserve banking. No, it's a mockery. The fact that the American people in some way choose this, right? Choose to operate under fractional reserve banking. This version of whatever the current version of crony capitalism, but with a covert social communism, like literal, like the human behavior out here. It's 100% communist as far as I'm concerned. Much of it covert. Sort of, a lot of people are just unaware. There you go. Yeah, exactly. But the thing is, Wizard knows he has no ability to make any other person comprehend. You see how I started to say understand, Wizard, but because I more and more am, and maybe part of my rambling is I am gaining maybe a higher level of mastery over the language itself and the word choice. But yeah, comprehend, Wizard. It seems to me like those entities that I refer to as not, in fact, having free will. Well, so necessarily they must follow the law, meaning God's law. If one is willing to entertain such notion. If one isn't, that's fine with me. Whatever. I got shed of all that. I'm giving all that up to God. I will say it in my own context. Certainly want to make all allowances for the audience. Certainly. I don't want people feeling like they need to dip out and check back later. 2.5 hours of Jesus. If I confess Christ as Lord, how can I be blaspheming? For me, that's Jesus. I don't know what more do y'all need to know? Why do we need to talk about it? Why do we need to focus on it? Some folks ain't into it. And who cares? I have no problem that they're not into it. Why? Because what if I truly believe that would be the best thing for them potentially? Potentially, I don't determine that. It would probably be for me to, if I know they run for the hills, if I do anything more than mention it for 90 seconds at a time. Probably I need to shut the fuck up most of the time. And then, maybe they'll be open to it in the future. Because if I'm in a certain place and whatever my journey is, or who even cares, but whatever I'm doing spiritually, I wasn't open to anything for a long time. Nobody could change my mind. I would fight anybody any way but physically, up to but stopping at physical force, right? All these fucking come on. I ain't into it. If I want to listen to Farrakhan, I'm going to listen to Farrakhan. And I have a lot. That's the best preacher in the country, by the way. He's not going to be replaced when Mr. Farrakhan. He's the honorable minister, rather. when I will then be referring to him and saying, "May peace be upon him," if I'm still doing that particular bit of shtick, meta irony, as it were. Shout out to iDubbbz. I think educating me on what the proper uh, meta irony. I think I understand it. Yeah. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, man. That's true. That's a skill. That's a skill, man. I've said for years, surrender is a valid tactic, and sometimes that is a surrender. And I think, what do you see? What do we see with all the Trump stuff? It's all this never surrender theme, but it's like, well, if I've read The Art of War and I've actually practiced it in various ways, and I'm certainly set up for strategery and strategic thinking, then well, that's never sir. What are you talking about? Never surrender. That's horrible. Yeah, we've all seen the meme of the fucking frogs getting eaten or whatever. He's strangling the fucking bird or whatever, the pelican or whatever the fuck that was, ocean bird, I guess. But in the art of war, surrender is sometimes that's what needs to happen in order to maybe be able to survive long enough to catch the enemy at a weakness and then also be strong enough to strike in that moment, right? That's a thing, man. Well, surrender. What if the person isn't set up for surrender? Now they can't. It's good to be able to move forward aggressively, but I find the benefit in being able to halt my own progress and stop long enough to reassess and maybe even if only temporarily, sort of pull back a ways. Bam, there you go. Indeed, sir. So I'm certainly no expert, but I believe I've taken in that I've contemplated. I mean, and that's the word we don't hear, Keith. And I know Keith's contemplative type, and I don't mean in a mendicant sense. Or I don't mean in the sense of a mendicant. Or topics of mendicancy. I'm not talking in that sense, not in a monastic sense. Certainly, Keith seems like he's probably contemplated many of these topics. So when I say that I've read The Art of War, really what I mean is I've taken in the material from the book and then I've spent time walking around contemplating and it's effectively walking meditation. Yeah, contemplative. But then look at so many of the Christians, they've been brainwashed and programmed to be repelled by the notion of anything that seems like brainwashing or program. So meditation gets thrown into that. So contemplation, if the person actually understands the words, comprehends the meanings of the words enough to realize, oh, well, that kind of means meditation, sort of. Different, but similar, related. Certainly related. Surrender, that's right. Well, there you go. Yeah, surrender is a valid tactic as far as I'm concerned. So never surrender, that's bullshit as far as I'm concerned. Now, in certain circumstances, once I dig in my heels, I'm probably not going to surrender once I've already chosen. So a reading of The Art of War will see, okay, in these certain specific scenarios that Sun Tzu, if that was a real person, right, according to the official fiction, the Sun Tzu fella, in a particular context, he's saying, okay, but once the point of no return is reached, now we fight as strong as we can, fucking more or less to the last, but then maybe still surrender potentially. I don't know. I don't understand. My grasp of the material is not high enough to tell you without going back, and I have to find it and say, okay, see here it is. Go back and study it. Me? I was good at sports, Mr. Murphy. Um, so competition, in many different forms. Competition. I lived a lot of that out. Uh, as far as I'm not saying that I'm I'm still set up for joy, right? But again, I do want to preface any of my comments by saying this is where we get into topics around happiness, and I don't believe happiness is even a real thing. As far as people tend to approach it statically when they view happiness, and then they tend to ask almost as a come on. They may ask me, "Well, I just want you to be happy," or "I want what about happiness?" or what does it make you happy? And that's a false premise. And you're not doing this, Mr. Murphy, but people do this sometimes. My mom does this sometimes. I'm like, well, I don't even think that's a thing. What you're talking about here, mom? And she sometimes gets a little offended, man, because I am direct and blunt. I mean, but it's who I am. It's congruous with the rest of my personality. That's why I can just tell people some shit sometimes. Doesn't mean y'all can't, right? Sometimes I can, but it's who I am. But some of the stuff y'all can do, I can't do. It's a double-edged sword necessarily. But yeah, I had the blessing. I'm very grateful, and it was a blessing to. Not that I was great at sports. When I say I was good at sports, I mean I was good enough to be competitive ultimately. So, and I thrive on competition and I love competition, and so it's a very joyful thing for me to compete. Yeah, that was a lot of joy in that. But yeah, I believe it's an error. I know it to be an error to approach joy, which you're not doing, because joy is alive. Joy is manifest, as is truth, right? Joy in that sense is something that I'm bringing in, I'm creating or co-creating, with others. And then if I'm in a flow state, and again, great branding, sir. Shout out to the situation from Jersey Shore, flow state, fucking bozo. But I was blessed enough to spend a lot of time in a flow state via athletics, which probably did in some way enhance my powers of meditation when I then undertook a formal process of formalized practice meditation for first starting at 90 days. So yeah, this 10 days on Vipassana, I do feel like I could do that fairly easily, although I understand the potential for emotional catharsis and the discomfort and the sitting with the. Well, I've read about the 10-day retreats, and I've read a lot of people's accounts, and a lot of what they talk about are the physical sensations. Well, I'm physically, I can sit cross-legged for 10 days with a straight back. Now, yeah, I will also, some of my muscles will be complaining because actually, I probably need the 10 days just for the 10 days of Indian style with the straight back, and I can kind of do a half lotus, but not really. Certainly full lotus. I don't have the flexibility. I wish I would. Believe me, I would like to, and I know I could. It's just the excruciating and the brutality and excruciating, pain that goes along with that level of stress. I think y'all are picking up what I'm putting down. All right, good night. Good night. But yeah, sports, but not formalized on an ad hoc grassroots basis. Marketing. So it's interesting, I haven't changed in some respects. I've always been comfortable at the grassroots. It seems. I mean, I'm sure there's always exceptions to everything. At the grassroots, uh, 4-on-4 pickup basketball and a full court, but a short court. But when me and my three teammates that we mostly played together, we kind of had a team, right? We typically would, if it was up to us, right? And we were very successful in that arena, right? It's a limited thing. When somebody like when Ken Biley, the best high school player in the state, shows up, he dominates the game just like he does just like he was doing literally everywhere he was going at the time. But then, was not in any way. He in no way distinguished himself as a college player, although he did play for a team that won the national championship. He played in the national championship game. I think he might have scored potentially, but yeah, didn't really do anything with the Razorbacks. That's okay though. But the fact that I could be competitive in that game, that Biley could show up and yeah, he dominated, but probably it was somewhat competitive. And I got to check some point guard that played Division I after that, and who was physically bigger and stronger and probably just as athletic as more athletic. just as quick and fast as I was, but I could hold my own and I could defend him somewhat effectively. Although he wasn't probably putting out much in it. A lot. He probably wasn't putting in a lot of energy. I was playing my best, right? Part of that is the small, not even white boy, just small. It actually transcends race because of my size. Actually, like it actually that part doesn't even really matter. There's nobody of any race my size out there typically, or there wasn't. Almost always the only player my size. Just that had a certain appeal. And poker, somewhat decent at poker, not great though. I can compete if I just need to, right? But thankfully now, between my age and the not the unexpected blessing of the ailment, and there again, asking ye shall receive. I did ask for this on some level, although I've heard it said, if y'all have ever gotten into books of affirmations, and I certainly have, or new agey type of feel good self improvement information, books written by certain authors who also put out books of affirmations. I've read a lot of that stuff, ladies. I know most of the fellas haven't. I've done little to hold myself back. And since I tend to intellectualize damn near everything, I easily can do that with this self-help frou-frou fucking feel good motive, but whatever. Almost damn near deep thoughts with Jack Handy, right? It's effectively that. Y'all get that reference. And I know I just went down a lot of. I broached several interesting topics there, to be sure, and I realize now I'm not gonna be able to explore all of them. So perhaps this will be the pause that refreshes. Murphy went camping in the woods for a few days with family, no cell service. Yes, rejuvenating. And that's where I say that especially with one's immediate family, perhaps that is probably even greater of a healing effect. But I do contend and assert that there is a healing that occurs when I believe my energy sphere is more or less a sphere 6 feet around, approximately 6 feet, or my arm span, which would approximately be close to 6 feet, my arm span. So, and then we can say, oh well, okay, that's the reason for the fake pandemic. No, not the reason, but it multi-layered and multifaceted. Certainly, it played a part. I'm certain, and also never let a good crisis go to waste, as we know. The cliche of that idea. The system is necessarily going to be seeking to optimize over time, and capitalism itself isn't that an efficiency algorithm on some level? That's a program, a code, a program seeking efficiency, corporate efficiency, and I'm oversimplifying clearly. Yeah, oh yeah, Hotep, brother, yeah, Hotep, indeed. I missed the Hotep. My bad. Yeah, I'm not opposed who was that guy who went on Rogan, that Hotep Jesus? He was a bit of a bozo, to be sure, but interesting combo. I myself have delved into some of those areas. We Was Egypt is interesting. I like all of that stuff, and I'm a big fan of the We Was engines, of course. That's a big one. We Was Kangs is it's a little fucked out, played out. Certainly appreciate the commentary, but yeah, the healing. So of course, the system and the social distancing and all of that, and then the people at the end of life. What if we want to think about Lush? If that's a thing in the QOC sense, and not that he pioneered any of those ideas, but certainly was perhaps the most influential disseminator of some of those ideas, right? And then I would like to throw my own name, my own hat into the ring with respect to between my podcast being influential. And what I mean by influential is I can see the impact on other people's content, but not in a way where I would directly be credited. If that makes sense. Almost like a imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. I also imitate. I also take bits and pieces from content creators, and I've certainly borrowed fairly liberally from Mr. Unslave. Although I'm generally necessarily coming into some sort of alignment with my own experience. And that's part of me needing to feel some type of way in order to even do these broadcasts. It's necessary for me to feel it. Some of what I'm doing here is those various practices, and I have spoken about an ability to circulate the energies of my lower chakras all throughout my energy sphere, and that is a thing. But it also, if my particular activities change, right, and you know, sinning, sinner not sinner, right, or whatever, sinner non sinner. I've never, I will never identify at the level of how I view myself. It'll never be I'm a sinner. Just like I don't view myself as a truck driver. If I worked as a janitor starting next week, I would not view myself as a janitor. I don't view myself as an alcoholic. But I did practice alcoholism. I did work as a truck driver. And perhaps I would have the physical, perhaps physically I could push a cart around and mop a bathroom floor here, and mostly just shuffle around. And the chemicals, though, I'm very sensitive to the chemicals. I've done enough of this fad cleansing, right? I've done enough of this fad cleansing where I have gotten rid of parasites, especially. I know I got rid of a lot of parasites, no doubt about that. Now, I'm not saying I don't have any now, but between the terps and I did 3 months on the drnatura.com. So anybody that's interested, feel free to go to drnatura.com. But I spent something like $180, I think it was, for 3 months supply of those. It's like, you know, like several different products and strong herbs to get rid of. Although some will say those herbs won't necessarily get rid of all parasites. Certainly, straight mollywops, a lot of them. And I did 3 months, and that stuff's kind of rough. It really is. A lot of the psyllium husk or whatever to keep things moving. You know. And I certainly, if you actually read the Dr. Hulda Clark liver and gallbladder flush cleanse, one is not supposed to do that without a parasite cleanse. And in fact, she talks about the zapper, which I think is a real thing. And in fact, if I had money back then, I absolutely would have bought one of those zappers 100%, and probably the good one, right? Well, back then I would have had to get cheap. Saying the fact that I never bought one of those zappers when I was truck driving, I've dropped the ball in a lot of ways. And some of that was the insanity of I did temporarily go insane, and I did purchase a lot of hardware that I don't really even want to get into the discussion of right now. I guess that one fella I met that one night, he must have been intoxicated. You remember that guy in the Tesla? Moon Mayan? Maybe I should have gone to his channel. I don't know. Is he interested? I need to trade some hardware for some car repair. And have y'all heard that apparently on my computer I can open multiple browser windows and it'll count each one as long as the video is actually playing on the screen, and I think as long as just at least a few pixels can be seen, that the YouTube will count it. So is somebody just pumping me up and I think I've got 19 people in here? I think about things like that, not in a paranoid way, but it's possible. I have to at least consider. Me? Oh, okay. Yeah, exactly. Missed that one. Is that Mitchell? Yeah, apologies. I missed the interesting. Well, I don't know. Did you notice that I got off of that topic? You noticed I got. Good to see you, Anon. Anon what? A bit, non-bit. So let's get my banner back up there. I guess I'm almost done. I don't know. I'm trying to think of how long do I dare let this stew go. I'm not interested in a dry, overcooked roast. Let's see. 7:30, I think, would have actually started cooking. So 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, 2:30, 3:30, 4:30, 3:30. So it will be 8 hours of cook time on low though. That sweet, there's no way that sweet potato's done. I don't know. Seems to be mixed opinions around these parts about sweet potato. It's either high in oxalate or low in oxalate, depending on which Google search result one's looking at. So I'm sure there's oxalate. Probably Music Holds a Secret. I think he considers anything much above 0 to be high, I'm assuming. And I guess he's probably eating a 0 oxalate, which what better way to, at least put the body in position to get rid of that, right? And I'm thinking that I'm realizing now with these, because I switched to a different, uh, I bought a less expensive digestive enzymes. I think they're stronger than what I thought. I think at first I thought, well, these are weak in comparison to what I've been taking, but actually I think I'm starting to have so much of a particular effect when I use the toilet that I'm thinking they're actually probably quite a bit stronger than I realized. So I might back off. I've been taking 4 with each. Well, that's when I do 3 meals. So I actually have been doing. Now I'm doing 2 meals. Yeah, I'm thinking about just seeing if I can eat all of it at once and see what does that do to me. How do I get sick or not? Look for that. Yeah, 0 oxalates. More power to you, brother. And I don't know that you got the wrong idea necessarily, but I want you to talk about it all you want. I'm not trying to get somebody to not talk about what they know to be true, right? I have no way of knowing that you're not 100% correct. I mean, you may very well be 100% correct. Sometimes I'm behind the curve in certain ways. I'm ahead in certain ways, always slightly ahead of everybody else, the masses somehow in certain areas. In other areas, like absolutely, some folks can be ahead of me, and later on, I'm like, oh yeah, they were right. How often does that happen? Does somebody come back? Almost never does somebody be like, oh yeah, you were right about that. I say it sometimes to people. That's rare indeed, right? Person that can do that. So yeah, I don't. You might be 100% right. What the fuck do I know? I do like this new thing I'm doing though, Music Called the Secret, where I'm waiting several hours for my first 2 cups of coffee, and I'm sort of torturing Music Called the Secret. I know I don't think anybody that's ever drove a truck doesn't love black coffee, or even people who don't really like coffee and still have to put a bunch of cream and sugar in it. But hell, my dad loves coffee. I would say if the person would drink and enjoy black coffee, but prefers it with coffee and sugar. I used to be a little too hard on the cream and sugar crowd, because I would be like, yeah, but I like coffee, because somehow now I'm elevating myself above them. See how it works? That's egoic. Humility is to realize it's not egoic, it's rather specific. It's a specific lack of humility. It's refusing to humble myself. See how it works? It's refusing to humble myself and say, well, actually, my father loves coffee probably more than anybody ever in some way. And he absolutely would and probably has and certainly will enjoy black coffee. So, yes, he likes coffee, but he prefers it with cream and sugar, which I don't. So, what? I'm not better, but I do enjoy coffee. But I certainly see the addictive effect, and especially that it's disturbing the potential blocking of expensive nutrients, potentially, especially with my body's, inhibit my malabsorption that I'm suffering from. I can't take in all the calories, and I can't even necessarily eat enough calories to even maintain my body weight over time. Although here and there, I'm able to put some pounds on. Pineapple, by the way, excellent for weight gain. I don't know that. Pineapple will, maybe, I don't know if it's the good weight or the bad weight, but it will put the scale weight on a person. Very effective. There was a time I was subsisting on frozen pizza and 1 whole pineapple, and it put some weight on me, as I recall. That was in my bigger days, though. So probably not the good way. I probably put a little fat around my middle. But that was when I was still had most of my bulk. Oh no, that's me like riffing. See, this is just a misunderstanding. Yeah, that's where we get back to it feels personal, right? Like it's me. Like why are we talking about like that? I'm just like why are we talking about it? It's uh I don't know. I guess I'm thinking I'm being like enthusiastic and playful to some extent. I guess. But a cranky old man also, like, yeah, it's cranky old man at the end of the day. No, man, I don't talk about whatever you want, dude. Come on. Oh yeah, I know I'm gonna do better without the coffee. Yeah, but no, I can see why you got that impression. But yeah, I'm doing more and more. I'm trying to separate that. I'm responding to the verbal content of the comment much of the time, which I understand that that's even me. I get confused when I'm watching a broadcast. When I'm taking in a broadcast, I'm doing so much better without coffee. I did love it though, indeed. So I am fucking with you a little bit on based on what I'm kind of rubbing it in, but that's just cruel. But then shouldn't I be able to enjoy my coffee because I am most likely going to also quit. What you have to go through to stop it proves to me the damage it does. Yes, it is. So yesterday when I started complaining, I don't know if y'all remember walking back to the room, I started complaining about fatigue. Well, some of that is my body's intentionally, the caffeine effect is causing me to identify more strongly with the feelings of general shittiness. And the caffeine addiction has attached itself to that mechanism so that when I drink the coffee, temporarily that's all going to go away. But then now that I'm having, and then it wasn't coming back until the next day because I had my body on a cycle. But now it's because I did 3 days in a row of the second cup. Now it's going to hit me twice, right? And I'm absolutely going to have 12. I'm going to have 12 ounces twice today. I knew that yesterday when I had it 3 days in a row. I said, well, clearly now it's on, right? I can cut it in half, but now we're back to where we started. So the addiction has very cleverly. I almost like 2 different times. I was almost like, hey, maybe today's the day. Like, and then I was like, nah. But so it's kind of in panic mode. That little monster of addiction, right? So you see that it's actually sort of staved me off in that it has, at least temporarily. But it will lose the war because just the absorption alone, I need my nutrients, man. I can't. There was times, man, it's been hard for me to see. Like I could see to do my job, and I'm just blessed with good night vision, thank God. I can still see in the dark. How that is, I don't know, but as my vision overall has deteriorated, and I must have had world class. I just must have had world class, especially night vision in the past. That's part of that military minded. How much of that was, the system itself identifying and sort of curating certain, especially males who are probably going to end up with high testosterone, but it's still in a group, right? Like even mine's not. There's men who make way more than what I made at 1100. So let's just say maybe I was at 1500, but only when I'm living right. See, that's the thing is I was never living right in my 20s. I probably took in enough dietary cholesterol and saturated fat. I was getting it from the wrong source. It certainly wasn't. My ability to think for myself was certainly neutered in part based on all of those very unhealthy fats that I was mostly getting from like honey, literal honey buns. Make literal again. Yeah, honey buns. And the peak of my degeneracy with junk food was in college, my sophomore year. So now, well, we have an apartment and a kitchen and cabinets and a fridge. So hey, time to go grocery shopping as a newly minted young adult, right? A recently minted a young adult of recent vintage or an adult of recent vintage, right? And bought I can afford a 8-pack box of Hostess iced honey buns, and then eating them virtually in one sitting, right? That's over 4,000 calories. Might be over 5 in one sitting. So certainly something so when you want to talk about what is the function of the gallbladder, what does it do? What is the function of the pancreas? What does it do? What is the function of the liver? What does it do? Well, number one, shout out to the miracle of Benton's liver, what it's been through: alcohol, remdesivir, medical, literal experimentation via pills. A cocktail of pills for Hep A, I believe, Hep A and HIV. So yeah, I probably do look like I have HIV or AIDS. Surprise, surprise. All of these things my organs have been through, right? And the kidneys at a certain point, I remember threw away a pair of shoes because they smelled like ammonia. Well, apparently that's when the kidneys are no, the body can no longer get rid of the ammonia, whether it's via the bile, and perhaps it's going into the feces, or it's excreted, it goes out through the urine, the kidneys and the bladder, whatever mechanism. It was starting to come out of my skin because I was poisoning myself, and that's because my kidneys did not work. I had times when I would urinate, it's always very pale, and that's when I was drinking, a lot of beer, a lot of light beer, but it doesn't matter. That was the Keystone Light, I'm pretty sure at that time. But I remember thinking, like, I got to get my kidneys working again. So I altered my habits like just enough to get my kidneys working. Well, how many drunks, you know, they stop drinking just long enough that 3 months goes by or whatever, and now their body's healed enough that it can stand up to another 9 months of drinking now. So, realistically, I could go drink for 3 months every day, but I would be almost dead again at the end of the 3 months. The ability of my organs to tolerate this, and in fact, I would be in just the pain that I would be in. Although alcohol is an effective painkiller. Yeah, once you stop drinking it, the blood rushes into your brain can handle it. Yeah, and I'm sure you're talking about caffeine, but this is what I'm saying is that the caffeine, when I think that I have a positive, like, oh, it's good for my mood, when I think it's good for, my outlook and these seemingly positive attributes, it's actually the difference between the artificially induced shitty feeling, the so-called wearing tight shoes intentionally in order to get the relief of taking them off. And that, I do find that to be a helpful example. I got that from Easy Way to Stop Smoking by Alan Carr. And I read that book. I've never been a smoker, but I certainly have an addictive personality, to be sure. And although I've overcome it in many regards, I've certainly overcome it. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting attacked again in a graphic manner. Yeah, don't forget about that time. Wow, that's not very nice. I'm gonna have to start bringing two phones, because I guess technically I could hotspot off of this phone on my backup phone, and I could actually moderate the comment. That's not very nice, to be sure. Well, and now we get into, you know, how much of that is protection, right? And I've already lost a bar on the 9-volt battery. And I had folks in here yesterday, I think, maybe whichever broadcast, and I appreciate when people are generous. I certainly appreciate it. Um, when that happens. Um, yeah, the 9-volt batteries. Certainly, it looks like the broadcast at least will pay for itself. Uh, and in fact, when YouTube gets around to paying me, that might be the time to snag a 5G ultra wideband phone, right? But yeah, might be some projection there, Anon. What's up, fake defunct? Man, I think Anon is fantasizing. I know his comment got deleted. I'm well in touch with myself in all of those areas. Now we get into the repression. How many folks are experiencing repression in some of these areas? Not me, sir. Nope, not at all. Yeah. Oh, and I used to get horrible headaches, and the reality is, if I stick to 12 ounces, and well, actually, if I do 24 maximum, I don't get the headache. If I go, it's when I go beyond that. So this last 3 weeks of truck driving, I did not go past the 24. So two rounds of no, that's not true. Actually, let me think about this. No, I was doing 40, 40. I was doing 20 ounces twice. That's what it was. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I'm not even sure. I even remember as far as the caffeine. Coffee. Uh, but yeah, I'm in the long run. I still plan to quit. Um, but back to the Easy Way to Quit Smoking book. Just understanding the psychology around quitting something like that, right? That can be helpful to the being with even with caffeine, which it is addictive, and it is psychoactive also. But I'm enjoying it more instead of it kind of being an enforced thing, mostly based on addiction. Even though I got down to 12 ounces, 2 cups, one shot, one in one sitting, and I've doubled that 3 days in a row, and I don't have to. But yeah, the headaches, man. There was a time when I was so addicted uh, and I was also less healthy at that time. This is when I was probably significantly had a lot of fat on me at that time. So I think I was probably also more susceptible to that. So, and I want to finish up a little more on the ascetic aspects of my illnesses, because it does sort of force me into asceticism in a monastic or in a you know mendicant. I think I'm using that properly. I'll have to go look that up. Mendicancy keeps coming up. So part of the illness, it does enforce very harsh, a harsh way of living onto me that I am able to enforce onto myself. But I tend to view enforced asceticism for its own sake. I don't like it. To me, it's repellent. So I enjoy doing it like built into my lifestyle, such as when I was living in the streets with nothing, sleeping rough, traveling around. That's sort of it's doing that thing. There's a lot of what's the word? Uh, Asceticism built into that, right? So I'm experiencing those ascetic states, which I found it is beneficial for the whatever the being's trying to do at the level of meditation, and maybe accessing some of these, dare I say, this stuff that shout out to at JFK Beta 33 channel has been talking about, which my understanding of the ideas, some of the ideas Mr. Beta seems to be conveying is some sort of merger of the kinesthetically what I'm doing physically with the actual logic and the reason, and then I'm assuming some emotion would come in there as well. And I spoke earlier. I started to speak about being able to circulate the fairly effortlessly, or I've trained myself, or I've been on a practice of moving those and balancing and keeping them circulating throughout all of the energy sphere versus becoming concentrated in the two lower chakras. But that's an ebb and a flow. See, that's an ebb and flow. As Benton starts talking about his testosterone levels and getting his mojo back and all this. And some of that becomes more of a factor, just naturally, of course. And health-wise, people may not want to talk about it, but fellas, we need. It's it's unhealthy to never operate the equipment. The gun needs to be fired from time to time, no matter what. Apparently, some of the Eastern stuff, Hindu stuff, will actually prescribe a certain number of times per month based on the age of the practitioner. What's up, Nuba? Good to see you. Good to see you. Pale Horse Rider, you as well. And Anon is timed out. A user called Anon is timed out. He'll be back shortly. We'll see if he gets timed out again immediately. Probably going to say something very derogatory and insulting towards me that may very well be him attempting to cope with his own repressed, if he is repressing certain aspects of self, right? That's the thing. And as far as I'm concerned, it is the thing. And then I'm also looking at the fact that it's 3 a.m. and because of the shittiness of the network, I'm more or less forced in a way to be live during these hours that I've been going live because it's like it's my internet's not going to work later, and I can burn the hotspot data to the ground. And remember, I did have that Verizon. Now, would I ever upgrade to a 5G ultra wideband hotspot? See, now we get into me spending almost all my time in areas large enough to have the 5G ultra wideband, which is actual. I mean, it's debatable, but that's more of what we think of, what we were told 5G was gonna be, the millimeter wave stuff. Which again, what's that doing to me if I'm choosing to stay in those areas? And I go to places even now where I talked about that the chemicals affect me very strongly because of all that cleansing I've done. Some of it, what I would consider fad cleansing. I certainly did 17 days on the master cleanse. Fresh squeezed lemon juice, maple syrup, and cayenne pepper in a powdered form in my case, with water, and then also drinking a salt water solution once a day. I think that was about a liter to kind of flush out whatever needs to be flushed out. And I'm a bit all over the place, but that's fairly normal. I guess I'll go back to the room. I guess we'll wrap this up right about the time. Right about its stew harvest. Stew harvest. That's such a good looking piece of meat. I'm really not going to risk cooking it much longer. So potatoes undercooked. That's just how it happens. It's not a $15 sweet potatoes. I think I am going to start heading. Oh shit! I think I am going to start heading that way. Apologies, the lavalier mic becoming dislodged. Abrupt. I do remember accidentally probably blowing out people's eardrums a couple times here and there. And yeah, I'm probably going to be live from my computer in the near future. Thought about just keeping these going, but just seeing who sticks around. Probably should do that actually, even if I'm not saying much. Probably should do that. Try to always do my zippers in the same direction. If you've ever had zippers that when there's two zippers and it starts to not work right or it won't stay zipped, sometimes if you've only done one direction and now you start zipping to the other direction, and where the zippers end up in the closed position on the other side, sometimes it will close. So y'all are aware of that or not? I guess I'm going to keep an eye out, see if Anon comes back, or did he move on to greener pastures? Is that all it takes? Is a time him out for 500 seconds or whatever it is, 300 seconds, 5 minutes. Yeah, 300. I might kill the cam for this walk, by the way. Starting to get a little more, starting to get somewhat self-conscious, although not fully, clearly. But just at a certain point, it struck me when I began to, although I'm not able to form mental pictures, however I can sort of figure out what I must look like to other people, and it's like I'm walking around looking into a mirror, which apparently in the the rat maze thing, when they, whatever that study was, where they intentionally overcrowded the rats and it was fucking chaos and murder and mayhem. But some of the rats just more or less primped and became as physically attractive as possible and like looked at them, admired themselves more or less, grooming and such. Well, obviously I'm not involved in much of the grooming, but I think y'all understand my meaning. Kill the cam, not the mic, sir. Yeah, I think y'all understand. Hopefully you're picking up what I'm putting down. Here we go. Yeah, back. Told you. I told you it was coming, which is good. Let me practice up, step my game up a little bit here. Well, yeah, you can do whatever you want. I trust your judgment on all of that. That's up to you, brother. If you can hear me. Yeah, man, you can just handle it if you want. I just never have liked. Sometimes maybe Rob. I've seen him time out and mute people, but it was probably based on something that happened on other channels. I don't want people moderated for any reason other than what they do here. Personally, that's just my thing. Yeah, man, you can feel free to fire away. We got moderators for a reason. But yeah, I don't. A lot of times people give me a wrench, and I'm like, I might just tell them, I'm like, well, I'm never going to use this thing, so you know. I'm just on the lavalier mic now. Hopefully, y'all can hear me. I think you should be able to. Not trying to turn it into a job. I guess some channels are so big, maybe they have paid moderators. But I don't know that would be in the works. I would like to be able to do something like multi beats. I would like to have enough money to be able to, and I did at one time. I could have just paid that out of my own pocket and would have. And I was serious back in the day, wanting to do some sort of a truth or natty or whatever we were talking about. I really was going to put up $1,000. I said, y'all better hurry up and do it, because if I'm between jobs again and I'm start running out of money, it's off the table. At a certain point, yeah, sure. So yeah, I could have spent $500 and had a song commission, fucking theme song or whatever, man. Maybe a intro and an outro. I don't know. I don't know. That'd be cool though. O'Shea hasn't been around. To his credit, I guess he seems to be figuring out that. I think some of these people, maybe Freedom Grower is one of these people to some extent. I think some of these folks just sort of assume that, you know, they can sort of just take everybody at their potential best. And, well, of course, these people who are exhibiting all this dysfunction seemingly much of the time, well, of course, they are able to sort of get their shit together and behave properly, when it matters, right? But what's the basis for that? There's really no basis for that, I would say, until I can find a basis for that, then there's not one. It's an assumption. Some cool lights out here, man. Not really. Garish fucking yeah, LCD. Garish, to be sure. Motorcycles. I guess I can plug the shotgun mic back up. Yeah, man, this mixer with the microphone preamps and everything that takes the 9-volt batteries. That is annoying. The expense. That part is somewhat annoying. But they're so expensive in the stores. Is what's annoying. Yeah, 15 for 12 on Amazon, but I'm not on Prime anymore, so there's a bit of a lead time. Might take 4 or 5 days to get them. I'm not planning on making any orders, so we'll see. Come up with some income. Might be time to get a jobby job, maybe. All the more reason to maybe go to a city where at least perhaps I'll be paid something somewhat commensurate with the value of my time. Right? Not here, man. That would not be the case. Yeah, it's affordable. It's also low wages. What's up, Talcott Express in the house? Good to see you. Am I out of things to say? Every time I think I'm out of things to say, I think of things to say. Even if it's just talking about things to say. It's effectively unlimited, the amount of things that one could ramble ramble on about nearly incessantly. Yes, indeed, Talcott Express. Woo! So yeah, again, am I fatigued right now, or is it coffee making me feel shitty? Because it knows, okay, we need him to believe he's receiving a reward. So first we induce the shittiness, and then we take away the shittiness and take credit for the removal. But it's the difference. Now he feels like he's improved, but really the coffee addiction made him feel shitty on some level. But he is sick, so he's probably feeling kind of shitty anyway. What you think about that? The problem, Roy was asking about the THCO, by the way. And again, I understand that much of the audience is probably sick of this. We've had experiments before. I did when I was in that motel in Fort Worth, actually Halton City, but yeah, nobody knows what that is. So Fort Worth, $350 a week. But I had plenty of money at that time. I was on the gas station cannabinoids, but that was literally one. Oh, and make literal again. But that was one vape, one disposable vape. This is me. I'm going through like this is I think I don't even know. It's been a bunch, but in a row it's been several. So now I only have 2 left total. They banned them in this state, although I'm sure I could get them somewhere else. They are relatively expensive. I stocked up, right? I got a good deal. I got them about $9 a piece, actually. So now that I'm down to 2, it's really kind of pointless to get off of it and then still have those. I could save them for later, obviously. Kind of makes more sense to me, especially since I have the time. It's only going to take a few more days at this point. Now, you know, if people are annoyed, and I don't know, maybe I would have been better off just taking a couple of weeks off. In a way, hard to say. What do y'all think? Never thought I could live without coffee. Yeah, that's a big part of it. I think is just that belief, and uh, I um I don't know that I thought about it that way. I know with truck driving, I was just like, I'm not even attempting this without coffee. That's crazy. I mean, those two things go together perfectly for whatever reason. Although not really because of the diuretic effect, but it still works somehow. Even that, even that part of it seems to work on some levels. Yeah, it's interesting. But I'm going to enjoy this on some level. But then I also, with me being aware of just how sneaky and pernicious, the little monster, that little monster of addiction. This is all, something is intentionally doing all of this. And it's debatable if there's any sort of cognitive benefit, at the stimulant level, right? It's effectively, now it actually is performance enhancing and was banned like for the Olympics. People aren't necessarily aware of that. It is technically performance enhancing. So it's not nothing, right? It's not just a nothing. It's doing something, but what is it doing and at what cost? And then I will say this, when a person is not in a state of addiction, and if they just go have a random, like a tall, and people can talk all the shit they want about Starbucks. Starbucks has the caffeine content is perfection. It's perfect. And they do have the best lids, in my opinion. And that's also a factor. We're probably taking it with me at some point. But yeah. Old man coffee, by the way. That's the thing in poker. You may not know musical's a secret, although you might. It's like a stereotype of a particular type of player, old man coffee. But now we're literally old men talking about coffee. But yeah. But I'm finding I do enjoy it more waiting, at least a few hours. So this has been what, 2.5 hours of a broadcast, and however long I've already been up. So by the time I actually am drinking the coffee, that's like 4 hours. And then if I have the second 12 ounces, 2 cups, the second portion later, I can time that to coincide with the broadcast. And it does, coffee and conversation, it does go well, right? It doesn't create necessarily the talkativeness. But what I wanted to say about is if a person's not addicted and they know they won't form a habit from drinking one time, just go and get a tall, which is a small black coffee, like just their medium roast or whatever. It's amazing. Like, it makes you feel great. You're just like, oh my God, because then that is the positive part of it. But I guess that's also the mechanism that's then used against us, right? To where we think we're experiencing that euphoria or whatever that is, but in reality, it's just the relieving of the shittiness, like we talked about. So I'm fascinated by those dynamics. But I do remember vividly just like knowing, I think it was when I was recovering. Yeah, it was when I was recovering from my almost dying and all of that. And I was staying at the motel and just sick, man, real sick. But I was starting to, walk to the Walmart at like 4 in the morning so I could download a bunch of YouTube videos because the Wi-Fi did not work. I was dead fucking flat broke actually at the end of last summer. Lest we forget, I was panhandling for food for like a month actually. Now I think, yeah, about maybe almost 2 months, and always got enough. Didn't have extra necessarily. Amazing, I always got enough. But yeah, Starbucks it doesn't taste good. If you get it like right when they make it, it tastes less bad, but it's not a good tasting coffee. I agree. People are like, how do you like that? It tastes burnt. I'm like, the caffeine is perfect. That's how I like it. I don't know what they're doing, but they're doing it correctly. They've got it on. It's dialed in. Like, I really enjoy McDonald's, but they don't. The caffeine is not there, man. It's not dialed in. It's better. It tastes way better actually. Just McDonald's coffee. Yeah. I'm having a flare up. It's a bummer. I do have a cold sore. Yeah, whatever you want to do, man. I trust your judgment on that. I don't mind it. I'm all right with some trolling here and there, but just constantly. And again, it's like it has to be some version of the person talking about themselves. It's such a cliche that it almost seems like I'm just making up something to try to make it look bad. It's most likely that is most likely the case. Damn, I almost tripped. Almost tripped myself. Putting obstacles in my path. But yeah, get them. Get them. And I hate that when I just kind of stub one toe or one foot like that. It can mess up the old lower back. But actually, I think it's just my foot's kind of numb, and I never noticed. Yeah. Well, I mean, there is a lot of. I'm sure there's a lot of opportunity to just wander into live streams on YouTube and then like effectively troll the people, right? 'Cause I'm sure it works on a lot of people where the people just start getting mad, you know, feeding the troll, as it were. But man, with that meat in the stew, I don't think I can even open that cooker. I'm gonna end up eating it. I want to have coffee and I'm not trying to eat it 3:30 in the morning. That's crazy. Hell, I woke up 11:30. I think that's just my new thing. I felt like I slept for a long time. Oh, and I remember I never said the thing about Dick Gregory. He said that had something to do with the Van Allen radiation belt, which again, I mean, that's probably not even real, right? So who even knows? But he said that anything after midnight doesn't count for sleep. And I pretty much sleep from like 6 to like 11, whatever that is, however many hours that is, or 6 hours, and I'm waking up at 11. I'm going to bed pretty freaking early. I have been. I have been. Anyway, not quite able to. Dunkin' Donuts was the best. Yeah, they got good coffee. I just never, if it was convenient and I was just, hey, it's coffee time, I would end up, for whatever reason, I was just near Starbucks a lot. That was part of it. They're very, very strong downtown for foot, because I was on foot for much of that. And I really, when Moose was talking about selling coffee, uh, I was being serious that I would pay money for decent coffee. And I consider Starbucks decent on the basis of the cafe. And they do have good beans. Like, they're not the best, but if I get the Starbucks beans at Walmart, they're good beans, depending on what somebody's looking for anyway. Yeah, we're almost done. Oh, at 3:30. I missed my chance to wrap up at 3:30. Oh well. I don't know that anybody would have noticed had I done so. Yeah, the trolls. Yeah, it's just a little. It's just a little. It gets old. Yeah, it gets tired. Exactly. It gets tired and old. Yeah, it looks like the move on the vapes is just ride it straight into the ground and then just deal with. It takes a few days. It has in the past. Takes a couple of days to normalize coming off of this high amounts of cannabinoids going into the system. Oh, uh-oh. Get them. Calcott Express is not having it with the Dunkin' Donuts. But I don't have a dog in the fight. So just for the record, it's bad enough I'm claiming Starbucks. I mean, that's enough. That's enough exposure for yours truly. But I think we're done. Thanks for watching. Bye. Actually, can I fake them out? I was thinking about bringing y'all in here with me, but yeah, that's a little too self-indulgent, I think. All right, we're out.